न्यूज ह्या सातोळीक बुलेटिनांक माई मोगाचो येवकार। हांव एलिसिया फेर्नांडीस। ह्या सातोळ्यान घडलेल्या मुखेल घडण्याचेर नदर मारूया। ह्या वर्सा जानेराचे 21 तारखेर मानेवन पाद आग्नेलाच्या जल्माची 150 वर्सां समारंभली। ही समारंभणी गोंयच्या अंजुना, राशोल, शिरोडा आनी सावंडे ह्या जाग्यांनी समारंभली। पाद्री पॅट्रिक लुईसाच्या फुडारीपणाखाल ही समारंभणी सेंट मायकल फिरकोचेन अंजुना घडोवन आयली। पाद्री पॅट्रिकान गांवच्या लोकांक उत्तेजन दिवन ही समारंभणी घडोवन हाडली। आमच्या गोंयच्या आर्चबिशप पात्रियार्क फिलीप नेरी फेरावान मिसाचे बलिदान भेटयले आनी पाद्री सेबास्त्याव मास्करेनासान देवाचे उतर परगटले। आपल्या प्रवचनान आमी सगळ्यांनी मानेवन पाद आग्नेलाच्या शेगोणी जिविताची देख घेवंक जाय हे ताणें परगट केले। आमच्या गोंयच्या ह्या महान पुताक बेगीनूच सांताचो मान फावो जावंक आमी सगळ्यांनी मागूंक जाय म्हूण पिलार संस्थेचो वायस पोस्टुलेटर पाद्री टोनी फेर्नांडीसान उलो केलो। ह्या समयार वावरड्याचो इश्ट ह्या मासिकाचो संपादक ब्रदर योसेबियो मिरांडा हाच्या मानेवून आग्नेलाच्या जिवितांतली लिपलोली माणकां मोतयां हें पुस्तक उजवाडाक आयलें। पणजेन जाल्ल्या वार्षिक बसकेन फातोर्डेचे एतेल लोबो कॅथलिक असोसिएशन ऑफ गोवा हाचे अध्यक्ष नेमले। उत्तर गोंयचे प्रतिनिधी म्हूण उपअध्यक्षाचो जागो एमिडियो पिनो आनी एंथनी डिलिमा हांकां फावो जालो आनी दक्षिण गोंयचे प्रतिनिधी म्हूण वेन्झी विएगस आनी लुईस विएगस हांकां नेमले। सोबेचो भांडारी जुजे कार्मिनो जुआंक नेमलो जाल्यार रायमस विन्सेंटाक सोबेचो सेक्रेतार नेमलो। सोबेचो जोड सेक्रेताराचो जागो नेल्सन फेर्नांडीसाक फावो जालो। असोसिएशनाचे हेर वांगडी म्हूण कॅप्टन एडी विएगस, एडवोकेट वॉल्टर कोलासो, एडवोकेट इओ मेंडिस आनी सेलिन अल्बर्टो विंचून आयले। ह्या वर्साचो कला साधक सन्मान पुरस्कार भोवमाने श्री तोमाजीन कार्दोजो हांकां फावो जाला। कोंकणी भाशेच्या मळार वावुरपी आनी भाशे खातीर नामना जोडलेल्या मनशाक हो पुरस्कार दिवपाक पिलारचे फादर आग्नेल कॉलेज ऑफ आर्ट्स अँड सायन्स हांणी 3 वर्सां आदीं सुरू केलोलो। पाद्री जुजे सिल्वेरान बाब तोमाजीनाची आनी ताणें जोडलेल्या नामनाची वळख करून दिली। सत्कार करपाचे हे कार्यावळीक भोवमाने श्री मायकल लोबो, कालांगूटचो आमदार आनी पिलार कॉलेजीचो प्रिन्सिपल डॉक्टर सावियो फालेरो हाजीर आसले।
फादर आग्नेल कॉलेज पिलार theatreworld.com आनी वावरेड्याचो इश्ट हांच्या जोड पालवान घडोवन हाडटा कला साधक 2019 हो भोवमान सुवाळो। फादर आग्नेल कॉलेजीचे वतीन तुमकां सगळ्यांक माये मोगाचो येवकार। फादर आग्नेल कॉलेज पिलार दर वर्साक कोंकणीच्या मळार योगदान दिल्ल्या एका मानेस्ताचो सन्मान करता। ह्या वर्साचे मानकारी आसात तियात्र कलेच्या आनी कोंकणी साहित्य आनी संस्कृतीच्या मळार योगदान दिल्ले भोवमानेस्त तोमाजीन बाब कार्दोज। आमचे कॉलेजीचे बँड संगीत वाजोवन आमच्या सोयऱ्याक आतां येवकार दितले।
कला साधक या कार्यक्रमानिमती आमच्या तोमाजीन बाब कार्दोजोक हो सन्मान फावो जाता आनी ताचे वयर उलोवपाक म्हाका ही संदी दिल्ल्या खातीर फादर आग्नेल कॉलेज पिलार theatreworld.com आनी वावराडेचो इश्ट हांचे हांव उपकार मानता. नांव असते आमी कितें म्हणचे, कलाकार म्हणचे, तियात्रिस्ट म्हणचे, साहित्यीक म्हणचे, सगळ्याच वाटांनी तांचें योगदान आसा अशें आमचे हे तमाजीन बाब कार्दोस. तांचें मूळ नांव लॅम्बर्टो थॉमस कार्दोजो. ते आसरो ऑर्दा कांदोली हांगासर रावतात. तांचो जल्म एप्रिलाचे 14 तारखेर 1946 ह्या वर्सा जालो. पूण ते गांवान कांदोलीचे न्हय पूण पोंबुरपेचे पोंबुरपदांचो जल्म जालो. पूण आतां ऑर्दा कांदोलीम हांगासर ते रावता.
भोवमानेस्त तोमाजीन बाब कार्दोस हांकां शाल आनी यादस्तीक भेटयतात गोंय विधानसभेचे उपसभापती श्री मायकल लोबो. तशेंच फादर आग्नेल कॉलेजीचे प्राचार्य डॉक्टर सावियो पालेरो भोवमानेस्त तोमाजीन बाब कार्दोस हांकां मानपत्र भेटयतले.
केपेचे गव्हर्मेंट कॉलेज ऑफ आर्ट्स सायन्स आनी कॉमर्स आनी सेंट्रो दे लिंगुआ पोर्तुगीजा हांणी जोड पालवान 2 दिसांचे आंतरराष्ट्रीय कार्यशाळा घडोवन हाडली. गोंयची संस्कृताय, भाशा आनी साहित्य हे विशयाचेर उलोवप करपी सबाद नामनेचे उलोवप्यांनी आपले उलोवप केले. कार्यशाळेच्या दुसऱ्या दिसा रोशेल आल्मेडान बरयलेले गोवा अ पोस्ट कॉलोनियल सोसायटी बिटवीन कल्चर्स हे पुस्तक उजवाडाक आयले.
If you go through the files of this period, you can see the different approaches of these papers trying to cope with the change. So these are some of the papers of that era, and then along the way I'm just trying to show how they were struggling to cope in that new scene. So all of a sudden they have to cope with new forms of entertainment, the lack of censorship, the freedom of speech, pressures from a new cultural approach and things like that. This is an ad from the cinema theatres of those times.
At the time of liberation, there were 5 dailies in Goa: O Heraldo, Avida, Diario de Noite, and Diario de Goa. The two newspapers were published from Margao, while the rest were published from Panjim. After liberation, most of the Portuguese publications tried to adjust to the new situation.
In the ocean that comprises of Estado de India's colonial periodical press, the writings on health, hygiene and medicine are significant, copious and diverse, even though the area remains relatively virgin area of research. Journal on Pharmacy and Medical Sciences of Portuguese India, which was published from 1862 to 63.
on behalf of my wonderful publisher here to sell my wares.
Good evening and to everybody and the possibility of participating. My article is an article that I think people need to know. It's about the teaching of literature in India. This is one of the most interesting things for us who work with literature in the West, or in Brazil in this case, that we work with single language literary theories, yes, and national literary traditions. And here in India, this plurilingualism, yes, this mixture of cultures, languages, and literary traditions is so rich that in fact is a kind of example for us to have new approaches to the teaching of literature. So this is mostly what my article is about, on the concept of plurilingualism, and I did some kind of analysis of how, of the literary syllabi in the University of Goa, of the different departments, Portuguese, English, Marathi, and Konkani. And I think that we got some very interesting ideas about how to organize our own syllabi back home. And that's it.
Thank you, Rochelle and Frederick. My paper is my article is very simple one. It's on other Lusophone writings on Goa in the 50s and 60s. So I work with some Portuguese travelogues, and also I found very interesting writings on Macanese and one Angolan. So these are other Lusophone voices writing on Goa in that very complicated period just before the liberation. So, but it's a very simple article that I'm developing now, this theme on Goa-Macau relations, which I'm also going to present tomorrow, so don't miss it.
My piece is on the church and politics in Goa.
And I wrote on an article titled Writing from Many Frontiers, Gerson de Cunha's historical and journalistic approaches to past and present colonialisms in India. And writing from many frontiers because Gerson de Cunha writes on different subjects and he's critical in different ways, depending on the place in which he is publishing and the language in which he is writing. So when he writes, he publishes in Florence, in Italy, in French. He's critical of the British government of India. This is in the 1870s. But when he's publishing in English, in Bombay, he's not critical of the British government. When he writes on the Portuguese presence in Goa in the past, he's critical, but he's not critical of the Portuguese government in India. And I argue that he uses his historical approaches to be critical of the present and of the presence, for example, of the Catholic Church in Goa, but he does so as an historian and not as a critical observer. And so in a way, Gerson de Cunha being writing and publishing in many different places, but mainly in English and Bombay, while being a Goan of Portuguese nationality, this gives him paradoxically a freedom of not being anywhere, and somehow a freedom of never being a subaltern, and in a way a freedom to speak out, even if he has to choose the places where he says what he says.
I'm not a person who's done a lot of work on literature, so I kind of fit into this group in another way. But I wrote a paper called Celluloid Subalterns, and that's the name of it here. But I also could call it Goa at the movies, but it doesn't mean about Goans who go to the movies. It's how Goans are shown in movies, especially Bollywood movies. I think the Goans have been presented over the centuries in many different ways, always images and things presented by others. Goans have had very little chance to present themselves to the world. And I looked at many different kinds of presentations in other work that I did. But in this one, I looked only at how they were presented in films, on Indian films. And the conclusion was not too promising. I found that I looked at a number of Hindi films, maybe about 17 or 18, and it was hard work, some of them, very hard work. what I found was that I compared it in some way to Hawaii, where Hawaiians were created completely as a kind of enjoyment-oriented people who danced and sang for the white colonialists, and they were hula girls and surfers and things like that. And I said, well, Hawaii completely disappeared, and you have Hawaii, like some kind of imaginary place. And in Bollywood films, Goa is exactly the same thing. So if you'd like to know what I saw, how I described it, please read the... but I would like to say that Goa still has not control of its own image. Others are creating the image of Goa. So it's perhaps time, if there are any filmmakers out there, please create some good movies.
VM Salgaonkar College of Law हांणी राष्ट्रीय चेडवां दीस खातीर समारंभलो आनी ह्या समयार तांणी समाजान चेडवाचेर जातेले अत्याचार तशेंच घराघरांनी जातेले चेडवां आनी चल्यां मदें भेदभाव रस्त्याचेर नाटक करून उजवाडाक हाडले. हें नाटक तांणी पणजेच्या बाजारांत बस स्टँडाचेर आनी काकुलो मॉलांत घडोवन हाडलें.
नमस्कार 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 सगळ्या माझ्या फ्रेंडांक हांव मोगाचो येवकार. आमी PM सावंत कॉलेज ऑफ लॉची भुरगीं तुमच्या फुडल्यान घेवन येयला बारीकशें नाटकलें. कितें म्हळें फर्स्ट नाटकलें साप्तक आमचा. आयज 24 जानेवारी म्हणजे नॅशनल गर्ल चायल्ड डे. हो दीस पुराय भारत देशान मनयता. कारण आमकां चेडवां सांबाळपाक जाय. चेडवां ह्यो आमचो फ्युचर आसा. चेडवांक सांबाळपाक जाय. बेटा हमारा ऐसा काम करेगा मगर ये तो कोई न जाने ये मेरी मंजिल है कहाँ. बाबा करके है बड़ा नाम करेगा.
उम्मा कितें गो कितें करता रे दिसालो कितें करता रे हरशी बरें उलयना मगो आयज कितें जाय हे मगे माझ्या इश्टिणीचो बर्थडे आसलेलो हांव तो वाटेचा वचून यो कोण इश्टिणी आगी तूं वळखता खंय ताका ते आलोका आसा पळय ते येतले कित्याक तूं हांव सारकी रातची 9:30 म्हणसर गाडी येता 9:30 म्हणसर जाणा मगो चेडू भुरग्यांक रातीन भायर रावपाचें बरें न्ही म्हणून केन्ना कितेंय करूं शकता नाका जालें.
रेडी आम्हाला इष्टा बरोबर गेलो. कितें सांगू तुका खूब मजा येयली भोंवपाक खूब मजा येयली.
राजा जेवण तयार आसा जेवपाक यो.
येता म्हणटी.
डॅड मॉम तुम्ही ताका विचारले ना ताका येवपाक इतलो लेट कित्याक जालो बी ते म्हाकाच सदां विचारता म्हाजेरूच सदां बंधनां घालता अशें कित्याक आमी दोगां एक न्ही.
Give us their freedom, save them from pain. We won't let anyone take a child out again. Give us their freedom, save them from pain. We won't let anyone take a child out again. Na 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 na. हेच चल्ला संवसारान चेडो दिसले धांवले फाटल्यान ते फुलपाकूच ना तो चेडो तेकाय सांबाळपा जाय न्हू कोण असले कितें करता ते 10 कॉल करा तेकाय सांबाळ तेका कितें हेल्प करा तेन्नाच देश फुडें सरतलो.
ह्यो वाचल्यो ह्यो सुमानांतल्यो खबरो. परत मेळुया फुडल्या आयताराक. रातच्या 8 वरांचेर ते मेरेन मोग आसूंदी.